One of the strangest and most terrifying codes of the 20th century is the mysterious case involving the tragic deaths of 9 Russian hikers at the Dyatlov Pass in the northern Ural Mountains, Russia. On January 25, 1959, a ski guide, along with 3 engineers and 7 students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute in the city of Sverdlovsk, former Soviet Union, boarded a train to the northern Ural Mountains to embark on a dangerous expedition to conquer the Otorten mountain range. The leader of the hiking group was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov. Later, the pass where the 9 people died was named after him, an enthusiastic and passionate young man. He organized the trip for people who shared a love for adventurous mountain climbing with the goal of creating a real-world, physical training environment to mentally prepare the members for more difficult and strenuous journeys in the future. When the group left the train station and prepared to board a bus heading toward the Ural Mountains, one member, Yuri Yudin, began to feel unwell and was forced to stay behind to rest in the town of Vizhai. Hugging his teammates goodbye, Yudin watched them gradually depart with a look of envy in his eyes, not knowing how fortunate he was to be the only member of the group who would not lose his life in the freezing mountains. The rest of Yudin's life would be haunted by the thought of never being able to uncover the kind of force that had taken the lives of his friends. 2 days later, 9 young hikers, including mountain guide Alexander Zolotarev, 3 engineers Rustem Slobodin, Georgy Krivonishenko, and Nicolas Thibault Brynolel, along with students Yuri Doroshenko, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Ludmila Dubinina, followed team leader Dyatlov as they advanced toward the first stop on their journey to cross Mount Gora Torten. The fateful journey began on the evening of January 28, 1959. But not a single person reached the destination, and not a single soul returned alive. According to the schedule, Dyatlov's expedition team was expected to take only 3 days to climb to the summit of Mount Kolat and return to the town of Vizhai by February 11, 1959. By that time, they would send a telegram to their families to inform them that the mission had been completed. Until the expected return date, when no telegram was received, most of the hikers' families showed little concern, as such long expeditions rarely finished exactly on time. However, as a week passed without any news from the expedition team, the families began to feel uneasy. They requested that the Ural Polytechnic Institute organize an immediate search and rescue operation. After several days of unsuccessful searching, the military and authorities got involved. Military aircraft and helicopters were dispatched to the remote mountain area to conduct a wide-scale search. It wasn't until February 25 that a pilot noticed something unusual on the mountainside below, gradually revealing the first clues in the case of the 9 missing people. The very next day, a search unit, which included Mikhail Sharavin, a student from the Polytechnic Institute, began making their way up the eastern slope of the mountain coded as 1079 in the investigation files. This mountain, inhabited by the Mansi people, is locally known as Kalatsyakla, meaning Mountain of the Dead. Upon reaching the location where the strange object had been spotted, the rescue team discovered a completely torn and destroyed tent, surrounded by the frantic footprints of at least 8 people desperately trying to flee from the tent. The persistent search efforts eventually led Sharavin to find traces of ashes, fire-starting tools, and the frozen bodies of 2 members, Doroshenko and Krivonishenko. More tragically, they had died in a state of undress, with only their underwear on. Surrounding them were scattered pieces of pine bark. Later forensic analysis confirmed that the pieces of skin on the nearby pine tree belonged to the 2 victims. Clearly, they had tried to climb the tree in a desperate attempt to escape whatever terrifying force had driven them, but failed. At that time, the rescue team believed it was possible that a monster had frightened the hikers so much that they ran outside without taking the time to put on clothes, despite the bone-chilling cold, and desperately clung to the tree, causing their skin to tear in their frantic search for shelter. However, the strange thing was that there were no signs of any creature chasing them, and the fact that the victims had time to start a fire for warmth, with their bodies still intact and without severe injuries, left the investigators puzzled and confused. Not long after the bodies of Doroshenko and Krivonyshenko were found, the search unit discovered the body of team leader Dyatlov about 280 meters away. Dyatlov was found lying on his back, one hand tightly clutching a birch branch, while the other was frozen stiff in a defensive position, as if trying to shield his head from an unknown attacking force. One by one, the rescue team discovered the remaining bodies. Half buried in snow not far from the campsite was the body of Rustem Slobodin, face down on the ground. Slobodin's skull had suffered damage from a blow that caused a fracture nearly 20 centimeters long. However, medical experts later confirmed that his cause of death was hypothermia, not the injury. Zinaida Kolmogorova was found the farthest from the campsite. Bloodstains were found around her body, but to this day it remains unclear whether the blood belonged to Zinaida or not. Rescue workers also couldn't determine the cause of death for the female student, as there were no signs of struggle or resistance. Unlike those found earlier, these four, Zolotaryov, Thibaut Brignolal, Kolivatov, and Dubinina, were fully clothed, and their bodies bore severe internal injuries such as broken ribs and skull fractures, but no external wounds. Notably, Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips, while her skin had turned orange and her hair appeared to have turned gray, causing great distress to her family. The scene became even more mysterious when their tent was found torn open from the inside. Investigators believe the group had been overcome with terror to the point that they slashed their way out of the tent to flee into the night in 15 dSC temperatures, with many of them not properly dressed for the cold. Footprints showed that the members had scattered in different directions, seemingly trying to regroup or find shelter elsewhere. Some were found near a tree trunk, showing signs of having tried to climb higher, either to observe their surroundings or to escape, but all ultimately froze to death. The examination data and photos recovered from the camera show that on the afternoon of February 2nd, the group was still healthy and happy. Their decision to set up the tent on the windward side of the mountain instead of continuing 1.6K to a safe location is believed to be part of their training plan. The time of the attack is estimated to have occurred between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. that night, but the cause that made them flee and sustain severe injuries remains unclear. Although there are many theories, ranging from natural phenomena, internal conflicts, to military conspiracies or supernatural causes, the truth behind this strange and tragic death remains a mystery. In more than 3 years of investigation, the Dyatlov Pass tragedy, the mysterious death of 9 explorers on the Kolitsiakal mountain slope in 1959, still remains unsolved, leading to many theories and public debate. One of the earliest hypotheses was that the group had inadvertently trespassed on the sacred land of the Mansi people, resulting in an attack. However, this theory was dismissed because the victims' injuries were too severe to have been caused by humans, and there were no signs of foreign presence at the scene. The extraterrestrial theory also gained attention, especially after several witnesses reported seeing glowing orange spheres in the sky over the area. The lead investigator, Ivanov, believed UFOs were linked to the strange deaths, but he was ordered to close the case and keep the information confidential. The radioactive contamination found on the victims' clothing and their skin turning orange, along with their hair turning white, further fueled the intrigue surrounding this theory. Another theory suggests the deaths were the result of a failed Soviet weapons test. Yuri Yudin, the only survivor who turned back early, confirmed signs of military presence at the scene. However, no traces of explosions or official records were found documenting any military activity in the area. In In addition, natural hypotheses such as an avalanche have been mentioned, suggesting that the group fled the tent in a panic thinking an avalanche was occurring, but later died from hypothermia. However, the severe injuries and the presence of intact footprints around the tent make this theory unconvincing. Finally, some even claim that the culprit was the Yeti, based on a note found in the group's diary, but this was also dismissed due to the lack of clear evidence. To this day, the Dyatlov case remains one of the most unresolved mysteries of the 20th century.